foster this?
Yeah, cooperation is extremely important in any development process. Now, countries have got challenges, countries have got problems, and countries have agendas. If the non-aligned movement can generate a single philosophical, ideological direction, then cooperation becomes very easy. You see, when the movement was founded, countries were struggling to get out of the claws of imperialism and neocolonialism.
Yes.
And you can see what happened. Africa and many other countries got independence. Now, we are in a situation where if we can align our development problems into an agenda, into a purpose, into a vision, into a mission, which is a concert of all these countries, it will be extremely easy for us to move forward. You can talk about, you can belong to a group, but you have different visions. You understand?
Yes.
You can be in a home, but you have different visions. You can be in a country, but you have different visions. But as long as there is some commonality, what are the development challenges that we are facing right now? Then cooperation becomes what? Very, very easy. These countries have got, some have got religious affiliations, some are very secular in nature, and all these things play into how you do what? How you cooperate. But if you can define a vision, a mission, and a direction, and a purpose for this movement, then it will be a lot easier for them to what? That is at the level of getting an agenda that puts all of them together. Then, of course, this can be structured into something that can be institutionalized. Perhaps they are saying they are non-aligned movement, that's what they are, but it can be institutionalized and becomes stronger with the ability to push an agenda ahead. That's a little bit difficult, but that's the only way to, because the challenge you have right now is this. If you have resolutions out of this meeting, can they be enforced?
Okay.
No, they cannot be enforced. It's the goodwill of the members to go ahead and do that, which is not a bad idea, because then we generate what I can call a global position on issues, like what's happening in Ukraine. What does the NAM say about that? We can develop, but we may not be able to have the ability to enforce, because it depends on goodwill. So is it possible to move slightly beyond the goodwill? Then the cooperation becomes stronger. These are questions that are on the table, and if they can be answered appropriately, then it can help the cooperation.
Well, indeed, it can indeed help the cooperation to move forward and beyond. But what should be our stance as a country? What should be our standing point? Because I think every country, as we've talked about our focus, priorities and all, what should be our major point of focus for our country? We have 3 good years of chairmanship.
Yeah.
As we are leading the others or the secretariat, there's supposed to be something we should be greatly specific on as a nation. What would that be?
Yeah, I'll get back to, very quickly, a very interesting traditional story. Somebody went somewhere to get a hide for drying something. It's a traditional story. When he reached, they were cooking food. So he sat down and started eating. And then another one came and said, I've come for a hide. He said, but I also came for a hide. And they said, but you are eating instead of what?
Instead of hiding?
Yeah, that's what you should have started with. So what am I trying to say? As a country, we needed to exploit, extract, if you want, as much as possible in areas of cooperation and economics. Sign agreements to sell our products. Sign agreements to help us carry out activities. Sign agreements to transfer technology. For example, we relate with India. What can we benefit from India in terms of technology? What can we benefit from other countries in terms of technology? So that we have a more concerted agenda, that when we come on table, we say, can you help us with this? Can you help us with this? Can we do this? Can we sell to your country? Can you help us with our manufacturers? Can you come and invest in our country? So to me, those are the areas in terms of economic benefits that we can leverage from this chairmanship for the next 3 years. We need to sit down and have perhaps the country should even have a strategy. Some brains should sit and put together a strategy of how to exploit, how to extract, if I may say, how to leverage the country to benefit from this.
And also, if I'm to put it in this way, you get to realize that Uganda is also strategically putting itself in positions of attracting or being a center for meetings, incentives, conferences and exhibitions as well through the same summit of 2024. How is that going to be possible? More like Dr. Isaac has actually put it here, you always have to look at how you position yourself, how are you marketing, how are you, signing, which agreements are you putting to bed, or let's say what are you fronting as a country, because this is what is going to represent you as the motherland. The business community here, Doctor. Traders, it is quite sad that at the start of the NAM summit, when you I don't know if you've encountered it, but looking at the videos that have actually been trending on social media, clearly show that some of the people had no idea of what is happening.
Yeah.
And the worry is, though, most of them are the business people. Most of them that drive the economy from the private sector perspective. Most are either in the small and medium-sized enterprises, but of course these are drivers of Uganda's economy, and not only Uganda's economy, the entire African continent. How can they, position themselves? As we speak positioning, at times you realize most of these meetings are more, let's say, become more comfortable for people in the macro sector. How can we, I don't know, how can we position, or let's say, how can these traders, or what you could say the wananchi, or muntu wa wansi, put themselves in a better position, in a better bargaining power to gain from the summit?
Yeah, I think that's a very, very pertinent question. You're not going to have every business or person or trader in a way having the same information or participating at the level that the technocrats and the associations are doing it. So do we have a structure for the private sector? What is it doing? Those are the two questions that we need to answer. Do we have structures? We have private sector foundation, we have and many others. Now, what are they doing at this time is extremely important for the business community. Now, this is my thinking. We need serious think tanks who can digest this information even before the visitors come in the country, because this is not the last conference, there will be others, who can digest the conference and be able to drive. Not everybody can be at the level of positioning themselves unless there's conscious thinking through the process by what I would call a think tank that would bring together the private sector and the government sector together to guide the people. Because if I'm in Chikubo, there's nothing much I can do. But if there's a think tank up there that can help direct, in other words, how have the people concerned mobilized the private sector to position themselves? That's the biggest question. Going forward, I would think the concerned private sector entities plus government entities should come up with what I would call a think tank to clearly think through. Because all you would see in the press, you would see we were more on the side of how to prepare ourselves. Do we have enough roads? Do we have enough? You get it, eh? But did we sit together as private and government sectors to think through how to help the person in Chikubo? That's a question me and you may not be able to answer properly here, but that's how we need to do it.
Okay.
Because that's what China does. That's what China has very big entities that are for promoting exports. Some of them are not government. Some of them are government. But they work together as a concert, as a think tank, as the brain behind. Otherwise, it will come and pass us without benefiting.
Well, of course, that calls for the inclusion of everybody in such decisions that are taken by the government. And as the Non-Aligned Movement, part of the other objective and the aim is to make sure that there is a lot to do with inclusion, just as much as the United Nations pushing for sustainable development goals or an agenda or the Agenda 2030. Many of these are also some of the key issues that are supposed to be utilized. And of course, the decision makers have to play a pivotal role in ensuring that even the local Ugandan gets more benefit from such summits. That inclusive of the opposition and of course looking at also those from the ruling government as well, because the opportunities are there as much for anyone who's ready to tap into. And as we're continuing with our conversations, Doctor, there is a concern about the visa restrictions. That is something that is way beyond the conversations that we may have this morning, but looking at it in a way that for people who are into exporting, that is a limitation, a very big one. In your point of view, what would be the better way to address such an issue? Because it's more of a diplomatic concern, I should say, from a political point of view, where most of the countries, even some of those who are taking part in the summit today, still have those restrictions or have entry restrictions for many business people. And these markets are difficult to access.
Yeah, the issue of visas is a very serious issue because you are dealing with sovereign states making decisions to protect their countries.
Yes.
And sometimes we blame countries, but they have a right to protect themselves. I'll give you an example. We have been blaming, I think, South Africa, that they have not sort of allowed people to move freely into their country. But you also know that some people, when they reach there, they never come back. So that country tries its best. So we need to develop maybe an accreditation system. What do you mean by that? People who are into real export, not those who are going for perhaps jail and others, they can actually be accredited to move, to quickly move. You saw this accreditation process when South Africa said all persons with the official passports can now move. We will be moving. I don't know whether it has started. We'll be moving and getting a visa in South Africa. That's a sort of an accreditation system. Okay, so we need to continue the commercial diplomacy to make sure that commercial diplomacy helps our traders to move from country to country. Like I said, countries have their legitimate reasons to prevent free entry from various reasons. But then how do you work out? Let's take an example. If we have an accreditation system where all business community who want to sell and whatever go through maybe the private sector foundation, who verifies, then it will be a lot easier.
Okay.
Yeah, then you bypass the restrictions which are there. But some countries in Africa are doing quite well.
Okay. And Doctor, this my last question is going to go to the center that you're representing in the capacity here.
Yeah.
As the Economic Policy Research Center, what do you intend to actually, I don't know how I can even put this. How do you intend to help the business community with the NAM Summit here? How are you intending, what are your intentions, to push for, business growth and also to help Uganda's economy at large? Yeah,
EPRC is celebrating 30 years.
Okay.
And we are, I think in March, we are really warming up to celebrate. We are calling to EPRC at 30 years. We have been doing policy research that helps to make sort of policies. We're engaged in research, we're engaged in doing studies that can help. Now, we can do a post-mortem analysis of the whole process, see the weakness and strengths, and then come up with lessons learned and how this can be done. That can be done. But basically, our agenda is to help analyze, provide analysis of policies, analysis of what's going on in the manufacturing sector and all these private sectors, actually. That's the department I head, Trade and Regional Integration, to be able to help out. But we can cut out an analysis of what exactly happened, where we went wrong, where we went from an outsider point of view, not from, because we sit outside and watch the private sector on one side, we watch government on one side, and then we make our own conclusions.
Okay, I think I've done my part to make sure that you know where to find Dr. now at the Economic Policy Research Center. Your parting shots as we're summing up.
This is my sound to everybody in Uganda. Let's treat this summit as everything for all of us, not for a few others, and position ourselves to see how we can learn from it and benefit. We work together as a concert, as a choir, to perhaps entertain our visitors, but at the same time see what we can benefit from. We may have our own internal issues as a country, but let's put those ones aside. You see how Israel has done it? They have a war cabinet. Those who said we would never sit with a sitting prime minister, they are now making decisions together. That's what, if we can develop that attitude, we can benefit from even other summits that will come.
Well, many thanks for joining us on our conversation this morning. And Dr. Isaac Shinyekwa serves as the Senior Research Fellow, at the Economic Policy Research Center, that is the EPRC, obviously in the capacity under which we've been discussing, looking deeper into the economy of this country. The images or the footage that you've actually been seeing in our conversation while we were conversing this morning are footages that is coming in from the East African Business Forum, that is the East African Business and Trade and Investment Forum at the Kampala Serena Hotel. The theme for this year's NAM Summit 2024 is deepening cooperation for shared global affluence. And that is where our conversations are stemming from and aiming at in regards to achievements, significance, and the impact. I'm Joram Paul Sonko. Coming up shortly, more conversations on the same, reviewing and of course previewing the first 2 days and reviewing day 3 of the discussions of the NAM Summit 2024. Robert Chirabo Nyonyi is on standby, and he's also coming here to give you more details of the same. Stick around.
No more rashes and irritations. Movit Herbal Jelly and Herbal Soap is rich in natural herbs for a smooth and glowing skin.
Movit All Day Confidence. Chimanyiddwa buli 14 February omwaka gwonna ebeera Valentine eyaluna egenda kuba ndala nnyo. Tugenda kubeera mu Love Legends Valentine ne Victor Rose ku Kingdom Kampala ng'abanaakeerako okusasula bajja kusasula omutwalo gumu, ate abalala emitwalo 2, VIP emitwalo 5. Abanaakeerako okusasula emmeeza bajja kusasula kakadde, ate wali ku mulyango $2,000,000. Mujje twekuba ma love ku Kingdom Kampala ku Valentine's Day ne Victor Rose.
Nebiwagirwa Star TV
UBC, inspiring Uganda.
When we were stuck because he saw we didn't have what to do. Right now, we are in Toro Zonal Hub, the one that trains the young generation.
Ezeshaha tulio muri Toro Zonal Hub project ya muzeyi eyatiro kwegesa itwe ensinganto nyoyo ndi carpenter.
I am now a carpenter, and we do chairs, beds, doors, and everything else that is found in the furniture world.
tubanza kusiima abashomesa bitu abitwine.
We want to thank our teachers. They have done a good job imparting skills to us. To see that we do such things, yet we were in the villages and could not do anything. We are now waiting for graduation and put in practice what we have learned.
After graduation tukareba twaza kutandikira nkahi.
This week on UBC. A logical, deeper conversation.
How many teachers in Uganda did you consult?
But there's a mistake we are making.
Which is good?
Which is good.
Which is good?
Which is good.
We went to this school, we ran it Western, we ran it Northern, we ran it, then you come.
Isn't that an achievement?
Objective and non-partisan.
Honorable Minister, there were a number of points. I want to start with you.
Straight from the hearts of open-minded men and women.
Money tends to move faster at night.
I am the quest, giver of life, Alpha without Omega. I am Africa.
Hail to Uganda, the Pearl of Africa, a land with the world's most beautiful, captivating features. Hills, mountains and valleys, the enigmatic animal species in the wild. A land where Africa is condensed into one small country with authentic endowment of nature and perfect safari. Uganda, the Pearl of Africa, is without the crowds with abundant primates, wildlife and stunning scenery. Uganda, the Pearl of Africa, takes you beyond the guidebooks, the known features, and gives you the insights unmatched. Keep it UBC TV, where we inspire Uganda with authentic beauty and nature of our motherland. Uganda, the Pearl of Africa. Discover the fountain.
Girl, it is day 3, and of course so much interesting stories coming in. That is from the ministers' meeting that is happening at Speak Resort Munyonyo. Day 3, we saw the official opening of the ministers' meeting by the Vice President of the Republic of Uganda, retired Major Jessica Alupo, and of course the various delegates that came in raising a number of issues. As we speak, these are closed door sessions where, of course, even the media is limited. But remember, whenever we have something that is befitting for the viewer to know, we'll be bringing it live to you from Munyonyo. Now, joining me this time, still to discuss the non-aligned movement and what we should expect as a country, then also as a movement, I have Dr. Bill Nketo, who happens to be the Dean, Faculty of Business Management at Victoria University. You're most welcome, Doctor.
Good afternoon, viewers, and how are you, my brother? Thanks for hosting me.
I'm very fine.
Thanks for the good job you're doing. You're serving the country so well. Yeah, I appreciate personally.
Now, Doctor, to begin with, we shall not get tired of explaining to Ugandans what the non-allied movement is
and a brief history of it, because when you still move out of the streets, despite day 3, you may find some that may not really understand why they are seeing these guests here and the rich history it has.
Okay. Thank you, my brother, for that wonderful question. NAM, of course, the non-aligned movement, gains its root way back in 1955, not its formation. But that's where certain resolutions were made in a meeting in Badang in Indonesia. Now, later on in 1961, in Yugoslavia, they made certain key resolutions that made its setting life. And why non-aligned movement? Every one of you historically remembers post-Second World War. There was two, ideologies, I would call them ideologies. The socialist ideology or communist ideology that was championed by the USSR, Union of Soviet Socialist Republic. Then later on, of course, not within the same factor, the capitalistic movement, largely championed by the United States of America, UK, countries like Britain and all that. So these countries, newly countries, of course, by then, during the first meeting, I think Africa was likely represented by Kwame Nkrumah, the great guy. Then during the signing, there was also Nasser, the former president of Egypt, the late. So, of course, that name is named, the road, the famous Nasser Road in Uganda is named after that former president. So these are some of the initial guys who participated in that. And among the key issues why NAM was formed was to fight colonialism, was to ensure that there is good treatment. You don't, get that interference, and every country should keep its sovereignty among that. But you should not align either become capitalistic or become, or become communist.
Because by then I think that was USA and USSR.
USSR, yeah, USA for capitalism and USSR for communism. And there are certain gains because the rate at which countries were getting independence. NAM has this, they can't, something they can praise themselves about. Apartheid in South Africa, they contributed immensely, because all of the NAM countries, the 120, are members. Of course, the number just grew with time. They are members of the UN. They would have influence to certain discussions. They would have, and of course, as we speak, we even had President Nelson Mandela having been, a leader of NAM for a particular period, meaning South Africa also eventually became a member. So this is the brief history. But over the years now, all that has been overtaken by events. Now, it means there is, for a new conceptualization that was developed during COVID, a new normal, in my view, has been formed. For the recent past, NAM has been there, but the resolutions have not thus far created that much impact. In as much as they are out of goodwill, they are out of different challenges that are going on, arising. Of course, right now they are more inclined, they are less political, they are more inclined to the socio-economic development of various countries. Now, following through such, in my view, has been a bit of a problem. Quite a number of resolutions, many of them.
But even before we go to the current challenges it's facing, now initially when you look at NAM was very strong. Not to say that now it is not strong.
It's not strong, yes.
But maybe the fundamental principles that are still being held on up to now.
Yes.
You'll find that previously they would know that specifically is fighting colonial rule.
Yes.
They would know that specifically it is ensuring that we solve problems without military ways. Because when the world came from Second World War, then there came the Cold War, where the divisions you've talked about.
Yes.
Now, thereafter, and I want to seek your opinion, when we talk about NAM, we talked about the 5 great people. The Indian Prime Minister by then, the Ghana President, Egypt, India Prime Minister, then Yugoslavia,
the President of Yugoslavia.
And these played critical role.
Yes.
Would we say that much as they had come together, but the demise, of course, death is natural.
Yeah.
Of these 5, because these are strong people in the history of Africa.
Yes.
When you talk about Nkwame Nkrumah, oh God.
Oh, you cannot
When you talk about Nehru, when it comes to India. So was this a blow, or did those that came after understand the vision?
Yeah, it may be, first of all, before you even go to human beings, the demise of countries like Yugoslavia, where NAM was
their first birth.
That in itself has its effects. And the new members from which it was dissected didn't have, they didn't have interest to join. So you remain with a few countries who are also trying to develop themselves, who are trying to identify themselves. Now, joining a movement that has bad history in the sense that the people are proponents to that. They are the ones who are coercing us. They are the ones who are oppressing us. So now let's first rediscover ourselves, begin a new culture, form our own ideologies, then see if they can align to what NAM was thinking through. That's one. But of course, the demise, like you're really qualifying a very important point. The demise of such powerful characters who really understood what we're that from this stage, we're going to the next stage. From this stage, we're going to the next stage. To the extent that, just to, put an addendum to your submission, they had to, co-opt powerful people like Fidel Castro. Then Fidel Castro, being so communist inclined, in the war of 1979 with Afghanistan, he ended up siding with USSR, and now that caused issues. He had been overwhelmingly, when he suggested, let me become the spokesperson of this thing, and was overwhelmingly voted, and the resolution was passed. He had to go quiet because Cuba had been disqualified, because it had now become aligned to first of all, now that's the beginning. Now, you've initially had a powerful states like Cuba coming through. Now, circumstances have overtaken them, and they can no longer be members. So all you're doing is to try and find out to be relevant. Independence is done. You're coming up with certain resolutions. And one thing is, I don't know if I can bring in this challenge, the control of the bigger powers. That really do now. Of course, NAM is the second biggest after the UN, which brings so many countries together. They do not feel this is something we really have to, pride in. Whatever resolutions they're coming, they don't even have enough money to take them to the next level. They don't have enough. Many of these countries are largely developing. So all that, the initial ideologies which were political, those are easily captivating. They did what?
Yes.
The initial ideologies, which were captivating, have now met their demise. Oh, you've met them, and you've celebrated them. And you did not prepare yourselves prior. And certain powers amongst yourselves, certain member countries, are going against what you set out to do. That we do not want to fight against each other. We do not want to delve into others, whatever internal affairs. But this is what is happening in most of the non-member countries. So that you realize you're moving one step forward, 3 behind.
Now let's also look at this key issue where NAM is a voluntary kind of voluntary movement. People are not subscribing. You can't say they are mandated to pay their subscription. Second, even all countries are seen as equal. They have equal veto. One would say maybe that is good in one way or the other. But at the end of the day, when many weaklings come together and they still have to depend on a strong man to help them.
Strongman syndrome.
How far can they go?
Not very far, in my view. This is what I've been thinking all the while when I was thinking about this now. If they came up with a secretariat, hire a few technical people, on top of the initial agenda, they modify it to suit the going times. They modify the agenda to manage the change, because everyone is envisaging where we're going. We're looking at information and communication technology. That's where we're going. That's where innovation is. That's where the reach is. What is NAM agenda on that? It really has to come. And you need technical people at the Secretariat. You need to have, because we're talking about now socio-economic development is the norm, because most of these are developing countries. Countries like Cyprus have since left the NAM because they've reached a particular level and joined the EU. And of course, you cease to become a member because you've reached a particular status. And probably, so now what does that mean? So where does it leave everyone else? Probably there are certain resolutions, initial reasons that you can even change, that when you reach a particular economic level, then probably we can even rebrand and become, because the initial agenda, because the non-aligning is no longer making as much sense because the Cold War ended. And now those two sects are no longer there. So you have a secretariat that has technical people. They're able to make continuous evaluations. They are paid, and money is coming from the resolutions they are making, is coming from the subscriptions they are making, and they are able to come. And even the World Bank at this point in time, or IMF, whoever, is not having that much respect for them. Now they see people who are trying to align with whatever they are trying to do, and probably they can come in. We've seen it. In my view, I'll tell you, IGAD here is more biting than now. When it comes, it can delve into the political related issues. The economic issues can come in through to support the agriculture issue. You name it. But now because of that, now there is a bit of problem. So we are, in my view, a bit stuck, but trying to move forward. We need a new fuel with better technology to take us to the next level as NAM. I'm trying to put myself in their shoes. And now when we get there, we are able to solve relevant problems. We are able to actually meet certain goals, set targets, and who is there to monitor whatever we're talking about, whichever resolutions. If you have power changing hands every now and again, 3 years or 2, whatever, you have any, and whoever is leading is the king. I was just qualifying somewhere else a while ago, and they say that if the person in power for that bit of time, who is taking charge of NAM, is strong, is able to address so many problems. How about if you take the next 3-4 terms and you're getting weak people? How are you? No, that's where the Secretariat comes in to help him, to give a hand. If the Secretariat is overseeing the bank, each country is probably contributing staff who are technical in those areas, then you're doing so much to ensure that there is movement.
Now, how does this happen? Because when you look at the Baku Declaration, as now we are waiting for the Kampala Declaration, you see that NAM member states raise issues that maybe you'll find UN look at, which has the financial muscle, it all has all the logistics. Today, the issue of Palestine, very important, comes in. The issue, I had one of the delegates, think she was from South Africa, talking about the continuous cry of African countries on the UN Security Council as a permanent member. Talks about Asia, Latin America. These are heavy things to break through, but they are what they are discussing today. When we talk about the public debt,
huge increase,
huge, almost for every member. These are heavy decisions that have to be made. Do you think just through deepening global affluence, through cooperation, solidarity, these can be achieved?
To some extent, yes, but not a significant one. A significant one can be, of course, the good thing, most of these members are also members of the UN. That would be mileage in itself. But the fact that you've decided to remain around, then you really need to give it a little more commitment, more to what you're doing. Someone must part with certain resources at a particular point in time. And when you have resources, any person is willing to tap into. You can even decide to put conditions for as long as you do certain resolutions which are not already encroaching on the existing bodies you are assigned to. You say, okay, we are the members of NAM, and before we do any sort of trading in materials of particular category, probably it must be a NAM member to take advantage. We don't go elsewhere unless we run short of resources. We will be certain raw materials. When we're doing foreign direct investments and taking these resources to certain countries, probably priority is given to NAM. When we are trading with these, we categorize some of these things. In my view, it will go a long way in creating something vivid, sharing knowledge, sharing, very important innovations, forming conglomerates across members. And you're putting those conditions, priorities given to NAM. We only go out of NAM members if we do not have A, B, C, D in terms of cooperation, in terms of raw materials, in terms of labor, in terms of... So such things, if there are serious resolutions, in my view, will push NAM to the next level. Right now, it's all always rosy. And I'm not doubting these papers that are being discussed. Wonderful brain putting nice things together. And when you listen up, but right now, accountability for the last so many summits are, other than the political gains gained so many years ago, economically, or, when we talk about the employment created as a result of these jobs. There's short-term gains we can talk about right now.
Even if we look at short-term gains, there is a belief, and I was listening to Permanent Secretary, Minister of Foreign Affairs, saying that, you see, the poor countries in NAM can benefit much from those that are rich if they cooperate, and that can be strength. For example, if Uganda, which has a lot of coffee, if they can pattern and have value addition. So looking at these solving problems within each country's resources and abilities. For example, when you talk about India in the sector of ICT, it has gone very far. Here you bring Uganda, we are where we are. So this or multilateral, bilateral membership working within.
Relations within.
What do you have? What don't I have? How can we amalgamate and have and move forward? Do we see this? Given also the politics at play. We had Rwanda, Uganda border closed. You have Congo, you have Rwanda, you're supporting rebels. So is there any way?
We can register some sort of progress if countries, in my view, I'll use the basic word trustworthy. We've done an MOU. We're like, for the next 5 years, we are the sole suppliers of coffee in whatever form you want it, raw or value added. And there are certain standards you have dictated, and that we are going to do. If countries oblige, like, okay, I am Indonesia, maybe, of course, Indonesia, they grow some coffee, but probably have a comparative advantage, in my view, by nature of the cheaper labor we require and all that stuff. So for the next so many years, we're supplying you coffee at whichever sort of standard. If at all there is a particular standard you want, come and train our people on how you want it done, because it's not. So now, you concentrate on something else that will probably, you can also sell to some manner. The energies that you've been able to, produce coffee where you don't have a comparative advantage, now divert those to me. Then, so if such, just to use that as one example, but they are common, you give the one of IT, India having advanced in the Silicon Valley, it's taking a lead as well, quite close to the US in what they are doing in the Silicon Valley in the US. So, again, India strikes such deals and all that stuff. We're training so many Ugandans every now and again. We assure that in the next 10 years, they won't have a deficiency of people technically gifted in this sort of area. And they live to that expectation. The government sends the competent people to actually partake of that service, become trainers of the trainees, and the skill goes on. But what kills us is that because of the lack of monitoring, many of these things do not really live to see the next birthday. And why? I would say maybe the ministries are trying, but the people are involved in so much. Probably that now, whatever resolution or two, a responsible ministry is to putting people to simply monitor that. And that becomes also a resolution. And they are following it through. If you don't have a secretary, they are following it all through. Like we have a Minister of Regional Cooperation in Uganda. Probably you may not have a minister. Maybe it becomes a a few desks at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Now that tries to address some of these issues. In my view, we can register some progress. You check yourselves, let's implement this for the next 2-3 years. Then check, are we making good progress? But who is checking anyway? Because at the time of checking, at the time of doing that formative evaluation, I don't want to call it summative because there is continuity to many of these resolutions.
Yes.
You're changing power. You understand? You change the person in charge. Now the person in charge, probably when they are giving their manifesto that as a leader, I'm coming to do ABC. So what has befallen whatever was going on? Yeah. So these are some of the issues.
Now, also, let's look at the impact. Yes, colonization was fought.
Yes.
But neo-colonialism
is still...
Because most of these countries, at the end of the day, much as they never aligned, but now IMF, World Bank, decisions made by these countries. Let's take a simple example of Uganda. You wake up one day, you respect your norms, you respect your values as a country, and then the next you have issues with AGOA products. The next is you have a bit of cold war between some of these, then there are sanctions and all that. Now, these guys, these countries, seemingly have the same challenge.
Yeah, they do have the same challenge, and I agree. You realize I was very careful, whatever I was submitting, the neo-colonialism aspects I was trying to eliminate. Because the understanding between me and Indonesia, the understanding between me and the likelihood that hegemony, that's the full control by the big powers, of course, which is a result of the neo-colonialism we're talking about, probably will not suffice. There will be certain things where we'll be able to fly below the radar and we'll still make gains. By the time we get to the bigger picture, of course, that means, and the more we practice this as a result of them, and we're concentrating on those little things, and we're not only thinking about the big things that should come to the power that be, then probably the mindset, of course, that will require a transition of a mindset. You know, that even when we trade, yes, we will struggle maybe for one financial year, but we shall have mastered the art in the second financial year, in the third financial year. And we'll be in position to make those small gains with so many partners where we are doing well, we concentrate, and we are trading with them. Before we know it, they'll come knocking at the door. But the problem is they, you know, developing that hard heart to say, now, this is what we are doing, and we should do it widely. We, you know, we prioritize all the products so we think we have a comparative advantage. Put them across, and we will be in position to gain from A. This 120 is a big number. If we are serious and we are to put this into practice, we can fail to get 50 that we are religiously working with. And I'm sure with the thought of those...
But then, Doctor, there happens also to be a challenge here. You see, all these countries, each of them or some blocks have Western powers where they pay their allegiance.
Yes, yes.
And we must also, at no doubt, believe that the Western powers also may not want to see this solidarity.
Yeah, they don't
want to see this solidarity because they know the outcomes of it. Look, they are basing on these countries for their raw materials.
Yeah.
If they one time stop, then what will run their industries? They're basing on these countries for human power, cheap labor.
Cheap labor.
If this goes successful, so how do these countries then overcome this challenge? Because every day you see Uganda, now, okay, some will say are running to China. Some are running to Russia. I think South Africa, for it was very clear. This man don't step there. No, brother. Come. You know, at one time I said, but these brothers give us military hardware with no conditions. They're not interfering in our politics. This confusion, can it enable these countries live their dream?
Yes. I'm happy you cited China, which, of course, used to be aligned to the communist side of things. And right now, when you develop the Western models of doing business, we can see the sort of progress it has made. I'll also use this example when we, of course, I'll eventually bring it back to NAM, to look at the G77 and China. They have 135 countries, and China comes in to give a hand. I don't want to call it allegiance, but in any way, whoever is practicing the real principles of NAM is actually China. You understand? Who is not even a member of G77, but is coming in to provide the support. Is like, I am not subscribing to any ideology. So there will be certain levels of stubbornness to some extent that will be required. But the stubbornness that is empirically informed. Now, the one thing I do not know sometimes, because I'm not privy to the entire documentation of NAM, given that it's keeping itself below the radar, is when we talk about China, rather the NAM as we're talking about, I'm not so sure if they have enough data on the whatever best practices in terms of businesses every other country is doing. Do they have that best practices? Do they have what each other country does? And has every other country gone around to inspect, to investigate and find out what is it that you are doing? Some of these things, these powers that we don't have interest. But if you are to access some of these things, probably you'll make some progress.
Well, Doctor, allow me cut you short, and of course our viewers, we must now head to Kampala Serena Hotel for the East Africa Investment Forum and Trade Exhibition that began on Monday and will be ending today. Let's move to Serena. We shall be back.
Our status as the policy and advocacy institution of the private sector, I'll just give my chairman and the speaker on manufacturers. He investor in the beverages space. Most of you know Pepsi Cola. He's done lots of other businesses in the country, in the region. Just to set the stage for that discussion about doing business, about how it can be grown, and also from the position where you sit, how have you facilitated that discussion in the context of this conference? So over to you, Humphrey. Thank you. You could come here just so that it is easy to you to see everybody and give your speech. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Stephen. And firstly, welcome to all our delegates. I think Uganda, we should give our delegates a big round of applause, a big Ugandan welcome. Thank you for making the time to come out and visit Uganda. So, as Stephen